I'm Jessica Morgan, 34 years old with a corner office at a top marketing firm in Boston. On paper, my life looks perfect. In reality, my personal world crumbled 3 months ago when I checked my phone during a morning coffee break. There it was, a group text from my family asking for complete distance from me. No explanation. No warning. Just digital abandonment from the people I thought would always be there. The confusion and heartbreak nearly destroyed me. Today, I'm finally ready to share what happened and how I survived it. If you're watching this and feeling alone, my story might be exactly what you need to hear. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments, hit subscribe, and join me on this journey through family betrayal, painful misunderstandings, and ultimately, healing. Growing up in Oak Ridge, Connecticut, our family was the picture of small-town American life. My mother, Margaret, a kindergarten teacher beloved by everyone in our community, had a talent for making our modest home feel magical despite our limited means. My father, Robert, worked at the local manufacturing plant, putting in 60-hour weeks without complaint to ensure we never went without. Then there were my siblings, Adam, 2 years older and always the charismatic center of attention, and Natalie, 3 years younger, the creative free spirit who brought spontaneity to our otherwise structured household. As the middle child, I carved out my identity as the perfect daughter. I maintained straight A's, captained the debate team, edited the school newspaper, and helped Mom with dinner every night without being asked. This role wasn't just assigned to me, I embraced it wholeheartedly. Every gold star, every honor roll mention, every parent-teacher conference where my parents beamed with pride became the currency I traded for love and approval. Jessica always makes everything look effortless, my mother would tell relatives at family gatherings, squeezing my shoulder with pride. What nobody saw was how I stayed up studying until 2 in the morning, how I rewrote papers 5 times until they were flawless, how I turned down social invitations to maintain my perfect GPA. The perfectionism became so intertwined with my identity that I couldn't separate my achievements from my worth. When college acceptance letters arrived senior year, my parents assumed I would attend the state university like Adam, living at home to save money and remaining firmly within the family orbit. The day I announced my acceptance of a scholarship to Boston University, something shifted in my parents' eyes. Pride mixed with betrayal, as if my ambition was somehow a rejection of everything they had built. Boston is only 2 hours away, I assured them, not understanding then how significant those 120 miles would become. The first year, I came home monthly. By junior year, visits dwindled to major holidays as internships and social commitments filled my calendar. With each return, subtle changes accumulated. My downtown apartment stories made my parents uncomfortable. My international marketing courses introduced perspectives that clashed with their conservative worldview. My dating life, a series of relationships that never quite reached the seriousness they hoped for, became a source of concern as I passed the age when both my mother and aunts had already been married with children. After graduation, the job offer from Meridian Marketing in Boston's financial district sealed my status as the family member who moved away. Still, I maintained what I thought was a close connection. Weekly phone calls with Mom. Birthday gifts that showed I remembered everyone's interests. Christmas and Thanksgiving visits that I protected fiercely in my busy calendar. The last Christmas, just 4 months ago, had its moments of tension but nothing that signaled catastrophe. Dad grumbled about my liberal city ideas when I mentioned my company's sustainability initiative. Mom asked pointed questions about my colleague Jonathan, clearly hoping there was romantic potential despite my explanations that our relationship was purely professional. Adam seemed distant, absorbed with his new role as father to twin toddlers. Natalie, in characteristic form, flitted between enthusiasm about my city life and thinly veiled comments about my absence from family events. "We barely know what's happening with you anymore, Jess," she said while we washed dishes after dinner. "Your Instagram looks like you're living this glamorous life with people we've never even heard you mention." I shrugged it off. Social media isn't real life, Nat. I'm still me. But maybe I wasn't still the Jessica they knew. 10 years in Boston had transformed me. My wardrobe evolved from small-town practical to city sophisticated. My vocabulary incorporated industry jargon that made their eyes glaze over. My pace of life operated at a speed that made their deliberate rhythms feel suffocatingly slow during visits. Still, I made efforts to bridge the growing divide. The family group text became my lifeline to their daily existence. I sent articles I thought Dad would appreciate, asked Mom for recipe advice I didn't actually need, congratulated Adam on every minor milestone with the twins, and validated Natalie's creative pursuits. Their responses grew increasingly brief over time, reactions rather than engagement, acknowledgments rather than conversation. 3 weeks before everything fell apart, I suggested monthly family video calls, thinking the face-to-face interaction might reinvigorate our connection. Mom responded enthusiastically. Dad gave his typical, "Whatever your mother thinks." Adam complained about his schedule, but reluctantly agreed, and Natalie sent a thumbs-up emoji. We scheduled our first call for a Sunday evening, but when the time came, only Mom appeared, making excuses for everyone else. We chatted for 15 awkward minutes before she cited a church committee meeting she needed to prepare for. That failed video call became the last actual conversation I had with any family member before the text that shattered everything. The morning it happened started like any other Tuesday. I woke at 5:30, completed my workout routine while listening to quarterly projections for our newest client, showered quickly, and grabbed my protein smoothie from the fridge. My presentation for the executive team meeting was scheduled for 9, so I arrived at the office by 7 to finalize my slides and practice my delivery. During a quick coffee break at 8:15, I checked my phone, something I rarely allowed myself during focused work time. The notification showed a message from Morgan Family, with just the preview. "Jessica, we've discussed this as a family." My stomach tightened instinctively. Family discussions that didn't include me never meant good news. Still, nothing could have prepared me for the full message. "Jessica, we've discussed this as a family. We need distance from you. Please stop contacting us completely. Your behavior has become too much to handle." The words blurred as I stared at my screen, certain I was misunderstanding. I read it again. And again. The clinical detachment of the message felt surreal, as if I were reading about a stranger. What behavior? What had I done? Why would they not even explain? I immediately called my mother's number with trembling hands. Straight to voicemail. I tried Dad. Voicemail. Adam. Voicemail. Natalie. Voicemail. The systematic rejection confirmed this wasn't some bizarre miscommunication. This was coordinated. They had discussed, decided, and executed my excommunication with chilling efficiency. The room tilted slightly as I made my way to the bathroom, barely making it into a stall before my breathing became erratic. My chest constricted as if squeezed by an invisible force. Black spots danced in my vision as I slid down against the cold tile wall. This couldn't be happening. Families didn't just discard people via text message. Not without warning. Not without cause. I'm not sure how long I sat there before Rachel, our creative director and my closest work friend, found me. "Jessica? Are you in here? Michael's looking for your presentation draft and, oh my God, what's wrong?" She knelt beside me, her designer suit getting dirty on the bathroom floor without hesitation. I couldn't speak, so I simply handed her my phone. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock as she read the message. "This is... Jesus, Jess. Did something happen?" I shook my head, tears streaming silently. "Nothing. Absolutely nothing that would explain this." Rachel helped me to my feet, straightened my blazer, and made an executive decision. "You're not doing the presentation today. I'll cover for you with Michael. Go home." In 10 years at Meridian, I had never taken an unexpected personal day. My perfect attendance was part of my professional identity. But that morning, I nodded numbly and allowed Rachel to call me a rideshare. The journey to my apartment passed in a fog. Once inside, I immediately tried calling each family member again. Still straight to voicemail for everyone. I sent individual text messages, increasingly desperate. To Mom, "Please talk to me. I don't understand what's happening." To Dad, "Whatever I did, I want to make it right. Please call me." To Adam, "Is everyone okay? Is this about something I said? Please just let me know what's going on." To Natalie, Nat, we've always been able to talk. Please don't shut me out like this. The message status showed they had all been delivered and read. No responses came. I scrolled frantically through our recent communications, analyzing every word I had sent them over the past weeks. Nothing stood out as offensive or problematic. The family chat had been mundane, me sharing a photo of spring flowers in Boston Common, Mom mentioning a church bake sale, Dad complaining about gas prices, Adam posting a cute video of the twins, Natalie showing a painting she was working on. As the hours passed, I moved from confusion to panic. Had someone been injured and they somehow blamed me? Had there been a financial disaster I was unaware of? Was someone seriously ill and they didn't want me to know? Every scenario my mind conjured seemed more implausible than the last. By evening, I had left 27 voicemails and sent 42 text messages across all family members. I emailed each of them. I even tried reaching them on Facebook, only to discover I had apparently been blocked on all social platforms. The digital excision was complete and methodical. I didn't eat that day. The thought of food made my stomach turn. As darkness fell outside my apartment windows, I sat on my living room floor surrounded by family photos I had pulled from shelves and drawers. Christmas gatherings. My college graduation. A fishing trip with Dad when I was 12. Natalie's high school art show. Mom teaching me to bake her famous apple pie. Had those moments meant nothing? How could people who shared so much history with me sever all ties without explanation? Sleep evaded me entirely that night. I lay in bed staring at my ceiling, mentally replaying every family interaction from the past months, searching for clues I must have missed. The morning light eventually crept through my blinds, illuminating a woman I barely recognized in my bathroom mirror, hollow-eyed, pale, and completely lost. By day 3 of the silence, my analytical mind took over, a defense mechanism against emotional collapse. I created a document on my laptop titled Family Situation, Possible Explanations, and began methodically listing theories, no matter how unlikely. 1. Political disagreement escalated beyond repair. 2. Someone accessed my private social media and found something offensive. 3. Family experiencing health crisis they don't want to burden me with. 4. Financial problems they're ashamed to disclose. 5. Religious disagreement, though we hadn't discussed religion recently. 6. Identity issue, though my family knew I was straight and cisgender. 7. Work success causing resentment/jealousy. 8. Misinterpreted comment during last visit. 9. Third party spreading misinformation about me. None felt substantial enough to warrant complete excommunication, but I needed something to make sense of the senseless. I began with the least painful theory. Perhaps there was a family crisis they were sheltering me from. Mom had mentioned Dad's high cholesterol at Christmas. What if he had suffered a heart attack and they somehow thought telling me would interfere with my career? It was flimsy logic, but desperation doesn't demand coherence. I called my Aunt Lauren, my mother's sister who lived one town over from my parents. The conversation was stilted from the first hello. "Jessica, honey, this is a surprise," she said, her voice unnaturally high. "Aunt Lauren, is everything okay with the family? I haven't been able to reach anyone for days." The pause lasted too long. I think you should respect your parents' wishes right now, sweetheart." My heart sank. "So you know about this. Can you at least tell me what's happening? Is someone sick? Is there some kind of emergency?" "It's not my place to get involved," she said, her voice dropping to nearly a whisper. "Margaret and Robert are doing what they think is best." Best for whom? This is cruel, Lauren. I deserve to know why my entire family has cut me off. Jessica, I love you, but I need to support your mother on this. Please don't put me in the middle. The line went dead. That brief, unsatisfying conversation eliminated my crisis theory, but confirmed something worse. This was a deliberate family decision that even extended relatives knew about. Whatever they believed I had done was serious enough that family loyalty was being enforced through the ranks. That Saturday, 5 days after the text, I made the impulsive decision to drive to Connecticut. The tower journey stretched interminably as I rehearsed what to say, scenarios ranging from tearful pleas to righteous indignation. I settled on calm questioning. I would simply refuse to leave until someone explained what was happening. My childhood neighborhood looked exactly as it always had: tidy lawns, American flags, basketball hoops in driveways. Our modest two-story colonial with the blue shutters came into view, and I noted both my parents' cars in the driveway. They were home. Heart pounding, I approached the front door and rang the bell. Through the decorative glass panel, I could see movement inside, a shadow passing quickly. The curtain in the living room twitched. They knew I was there. I knocked, then knocked again louder. "Mom? Dad? I can see you're home. Please talk to me," I called through the door. Nothing. 5 minutes passed as I alternated between ringing the bell, knocking, and calling out. Neighbors were beginning to notice the commotion, blinds moving in windows across the street. The humiliation burned, but I persisted until my knuckles hurt from knocking. As I finally turned to leave, Mrs. Wilson from next door approached cautiously. In her 70s now, she had been our neighbor my entire life, the woman who watched us when our parents had date nights, who brought casseroles when anyone was sick. "Jessica, dear. This might not be the best time," she said, wringing her hands. "Mrs. Wilson, do you know what's going on? Why won't they talk to me?" Her expression was a mixture of pity and discomfort. "It's not my business, of course, but, well, your parents have been very concerned. They've been talking about your issues quite a bit lately." "My issues? What issues?" She glanced nervously at my parents' house. "I shouldn't say more. Just know they're doing this because they care about you. Sometimes tough love is the only way forward with these things." Tough love? The phrase echoed in my mind as I drove away, periodically checking my rearview mirror to see if anyone had emerged from the house. No one had. Back in Boston, Rachel suggested hiring a private investigator to figure out what was happening. "This is like psychological torture, Jess. It's not normal or healthy for a family to behave this way." I rejected the idea, still clinging to the belief that this was all an elaborate misunderstanding that direct communication could solve. I spent Sunday methodically checking every social media platform for clues, only to discover that not only had my immediate family blocked me, but cousins, aunts, uncles, even my parents' church friends, had either restricted my access to their profiles or blocked me entirely. The digital shunning was so complete it felt orchestrated, as if a memo had circulated: "Jessica Morgan is to be cut off from all contact." By the end of the week, I had missed 2 important client meetings, snapped at an intern, and turned in work so below my usual standard that Michael, my boss, asked if I was having personal problems. The understatement was so absurd I almost laughed. That Friday night marked the breaking point of my controlled investigation phase. Alone in my apartment with a bottle of Cabernet, I crafted a lengthy, emotional email addressed to my entire family. "I don't know what I've done to deserve being cut out of your lives without explanation. Whatever you believe I've done, I deserve the chance to address it. This silent treatment is cruel and childish. We are family. We're supposed to talk through problems, not discard people via text message. If you ever truly loved me, please give me the basic human dignity of an explanation." I hit send at 1:47 a.m., then cried myself to sleep. 2 weeks after the original text, my phone rang with a number I recognized as my cousin Emily's. Emily had always been more like a friend than a relative, though we drifted apart in recent years as she married and started a family in Rhode Island. "Emily?" I answered, my voice betraying more emotion than I intended. "Jess," she responded, her tone cautious. "How are you holding up?" The simple acknowledgement of my situation, the first from any family member, broke something inside me. "Not well. No one will tell me what's happening. Do you know why they're doing this to me?" There was a long pause, then Emily sighed. "That's why I'm calling. I don't agree with how they're handling this, and I think you deserve to know." "Know what?" "Jess, the family believes you're struggling with addiction." The statement was so unexpected I actually pulled the phone from my ear and stared at it in disbelief before responding. "Addiction? To what?" "They think you have a problem with alcohol, possibly cocaine." The absurdity struck me like a physical blow. I rarely drank more than a glass of wine with dinner. I had tried cocaine exactly once in college, hated it, and never touched it again. The accusation was so disconnected from reality that I momentarily wondered if Emily was confused about which cousin she was speaking to. That's completely insane, I finally managed. Where would they get that idea? Emily detailed the evidence the family had apparently compiled. My recent weight loss, which was actually the result of stress and a new gym routine with a personal trainer. My canceling 2 family visits last minute, both due to genuine work emergencies with major clients. My behavior at Christmas, which they described as manic and overly energetic, in reality, excitement about a promotion I had just received. Occasionally slurred speech during late-night calls, the result of exhaustion after 16-hour workdays. An Instagram post showing me with cocktails at a work event, a client celebration where I'd had exactly 1 vodka soda. The final straw was when you didn't show up for the intervention, Emily continued. What intervention? They planned it for 2 weekends ago. Your mom called and invited you to a special family dinner, said Dad was celebrating something. It was actually set up as an intervention. When you didn't come, they took it as confirmation you knew what it was about and were avoiding facing your problem. I struggled to process this information. Emily, Mom never called me about any dinner. There was no invitation. Silence. Then, are you sure? Aunt Margaret told everyone she called and you made excuses. I frantically checked my call history, finding nothing from my mother in the time frame Emily mentioned. I never received that call, Emily. I swear. Oh God, Emily's voice dropped. I think they may have convinced themselves they called even if they didn't. They've worked themselves into such a state about this. The pieces assembled into a horrifying picture. So they decided I'm an addict, planned an intervention for an event I was never invited to, then took my non-attendance as proof of guilt and implemented a tough love approach by cutting me off completely. That's essentially it. Uncle Robert has been leading this charge. He's been reading books about addiction and attending support groups for families. He convinced everyone that enabling you is making things worse. My father, the man who solved every problem with silent determination, had decided his daughter was an addict and the solution was abandonment. The betrayal cut deeper than I could articulate. Emily, I am not an addict. I don't even take pain medication stronger than ibuprofen. This is a complete fabrication. I believe you, Jess. That's why I'm calling. This whole situation felt wrong from the beginning. Will you talk to them? Explain they've made a terrible mistake. Her hesitation told me everything. I've tried, Jess. Adam and Aunt Margaret shut me down immediately. They're convinced they're right. They think I'm being manipulated because I've always been close to you. The rage building inside me was unlike anything I'd experienced before. Not just at the accusation, but at the absolute absence of direct communication. They couldn't even ask me about this? A simple, "Hey Jessica, we're worried about these behaviors" conversation was too much to expect from my own family. They said they tried dropping hints for months and you ignored them. That denial is part of the disease. Hints? What hints? Speaking in code and then punishing me for not deciphering it. I know it's messed up, Emily acknowledged. Look, I've offered to mediate a conversation. They're not ready yet, but I'll keep trying. They think you need to hit bottom before you'll accept help. As our call ended, a devastating realization settled over me. My family didn't know me at all. The person they had constructed in their minds, a secret addict spiraling out of control, was a complete stranger. They had replaced the real Jessica with a fictional character and then banished her for crimes she never committed. The revelation of my family's misconception didn't bring the relief I had expected. Instead, it triggered a new phase of despair, one where anger collided with heartbreak to create a toxic cocktail of emotions I couldn't process. My work, which had always been my anchor, began to drift. I missed deadlines. Presentations lacked my usual polish. Client calls that I would normally navigate with diplomacy became endurance tests for my fraying patience. The irony wasn't lost on me. My family believed I was spiraling due to addiction, and their response had created the very spiral they feared, minus the actual substance abuse. I became obsessed with gathering evidence of my sobriety. I requested my medical records showing normal liver function and no signs of drug use. I asked colleagues to write statements confirming my professional behavior. I even considered asking Rachel to film me throughout a normal day to document my completely unremarkable relationship with alcohol. The absurdity of having to prove my innocence against accusations never directly made to me fueled a growing rage that occasionally shocked even me. One evening, staring at my untouched glass of wine at dinner, I contemplated the cruel irony. The one thing that might actually help me cope with this pain was the very thing I couldn't allow myself to use, lest it somehow validate their unfounded concerns. Maybe I should just become the alcoholic they already think I am, I said bitterly to Rachel over dinner. At least then their behavior would make sense. That's exactly what you're not going to do, she replied firmly. Don't let their delusion become your reality. 2.5 weeks after the text message, Michael called me into his office, closing the door behind me. Never a good sign. Jessica, I've always valued your contributions to Meridian, he began, his formal tone immediately alerting me to the seriousness of the conversation. Your work has consistently been exceptional, which is why the past few weeks have been so concerning. He slid a folder across his desk containing client complaints, missed deadlines, and calculation errors in reports, all from the past 18 days. I don't know what's happening in your personal life, and I want to respect your privacy. But this level of performance isn't sustainable for the company or for your position here. The threat was clear even without explicit statement. My perfect career, the one aspect of my identity that had remained untouched by the family crisis, was now in jeopardy. I'm dealing with a family situation, I admitted, the understatement of the century. Michael's expression softened slightly. Take 2 weeks. Sort out whatever's happening. When you come back, I need the old Jessica, focused, meticulous, reliable. It wasn't a request. The 2-week probation felt simultaneously like a lifeline and a humiliation. I had never required accommodation for personal issues before. That weekend, Rachel convinced me to join her for dinner with friends, including Thomas, a corporate attorney she thought I might connect with. I agreed reluctantly, desperate for any distraction. The evening began pleasantly enough. Thomas was intelligent, attractive, and attentive. Under normal circumstances, I might have been interested. But halfway through the main course, he mentioned his close relationship with his sisters, showing me photos of their recent family vacation. What about your family? He asked innocently. Are you close? The question hit like a physical blow. I managed a tight smile and vague response, but minutes later found myself in the restaurant bathroom, sobbing uncontrollably. Rachel eventually came to find me, making excuses to the table as she helped me into a rideshare home. I can't even have a normal conversation anymore, I told her brokenly. The most basic small talk becomes a landmine. After that disaster, I declined further social invitations, isolating myself in my apartment during my forced leave from work. The solitude quickly became toxic. With nothing to occupy my mind, I spent hours in internet rabbit holes researching family estrangement, addiction misconceptions, and interventions gone wrong. I found forums for people who had experienced similar family cutoffs, many without explanation. Their stories provided little comfort, filled with years of unresolved pain and permanent fractures. Late one night, after hours of reading these devastating accounts, I found myself sitting on my bathroom floor at 3 a.m., staring at my bottle of prescription sleeping pills. The bottle promised temporary escape from the thoughts circling endlessly in my mind. For a horrifying moment, I calculated how many it would take to ensure I didn't wake up to this reality again. The thought shocked me back to my senses. I wasn't suicidal. I didn't want to die. I just wanted the pain to stop. But the frightening clarity of that moment, understanding how desperation could push someone toward such a permanent solution, terrified me. With trembling hands, I flushed the pills down the toilet, then called a crisis hotline, something I'd never imagined doing. I'm not going to hurt myself, I told the calm voice that answered. But I'm afraid of how much I wanted to a moment ago. The counselor kept me on the line for nearly 2 hours, eventually helping me develop a safety plan and connecting me with a therapist who could see me the following day. That late-night call became the unexpected turning point, the moment I realized that while I couldn't control my family's actions, I needed to take control of my response before their false concerns became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Dr. Elena Martinez's office felt deliberately neutral: soft beige walls, muted artwork, comfortable but unmemorable furniture. I'd researched her extensively before our appointment, learning she specialized in family trauma and estrangement. Still, I arrived defensive and skeptical, unsure how therapy could possibly solve a problem rooted in other people's delusions. "Tell me why you're here, Jessica," she began simply. The story poured out of me in a disjointed rush: the text message, the investigation, Emily's revelation about the addiction theory, my spiraling work performance, the bathroom floor incident. Dr. Martinez listened without interruption, occasionally nodding, but offering no platitudes or immediate solutions. When I finally finished, she was quiet for a moment before responding. "What strikes me immediately is how much your identity has been shaped by being the perfect daughter, sister, and employee. This situation has attacked the core of how you see yourself." Her observation hit with unexpected precision. I had never considered how much of my self-worth was externally validated through achievement and approval. "Your family's response is troubling and harmful," she continued, "but I'd like to explore why their perception, however wrong, has the power to devastate you so completely." That first session opened a door to recognizing patterns I had never questioned. How my childhood role as the perfect daughter had created a lifelong need for validation through achievement. How my relationship with my family had always been conditional: love freely given when I met expectations, subtly withdrawn when I didn't. "This isn't about making excuses for their behavior," Dr. Martinez emphasized in our second session. "What they're doing is emotionally abusive. But understanding the dynamics that led here might help you navigate forward." We explored how my family might have reached their wildly incorrect conclusion from their perspective, the distance I had created by moving away, the glimpses of my life they saw primarily through social media, the generational and cultural differences in understanding mental health versus addiction, their limited framework for interpreting behaviors they didn't understand. If they were truly concerned, why not just ask me directly? I demanded, still angry at the fundamental betrayal of their approach. Some families lack the emotional vocabulary for direct confrontation about difficult topics, she explained. They may genuinely believe they tried to address this with you through what they considered obvious hints that you missed or denied. The insight didn't excuse their behavior, but it helped me understand the bizarre logic that might be operating in their minds. 3 weeks into therapy, Rachel convinced me to join a support group for adults experiencing family estrangement. I reluctantly attended, feeling like an imposter among people with decades of family conflict. In a church basement with bad coffee and folding chairs, I listened to stories that reflected fragments of my own experience. Mark, whose religious parents cut him off after he came out as gay 15 years ago. Sophia, whose mother hadn't spoken to her in 8 years due to marrying outside their culture. David, whose siblings had excommunicated him over a disputed inheritance. "The hardest part isn't even the loss," Sophia shared during my first meeting. "It's the way it makes you question every memory, every interaction you thought you understood." I found myself nodding along, recognizing the disorienting retrospection that had consumed me, re-examining every family moment through this new, distorted lens. The group understood what well-meaning friends couldn't: the unique grief of ambiguous loss, family members who are physically alive but psychologically absent. The absence of closure. The social stigma that surrounds family estrangement in a culture obsessed with family values. "People keep telling me to just call them," I shared during my second meeting. As if I haven't tried hundreds of times. As if the solution is that simple. The knowing nods around the circle provided more comfort than all the well-intentioned advice I'd received. While building this new support network, I also reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during my career-focused years in Boston. College roommates I'd lost touch with. Former colleagues who had reached out periodically only to be met with rain checks due to my packed schedule. Karen, my freshman year roommate now living in Cambridge, became a regular Sunday brunch companion. James, a former creative team member who had moved to a competitor agency, became a valued sounding board for navigating my professional challenges. With Dr. Martinez's guidance, I drafted a letter to my family that I didn't immediately send. The process itself was therapeutic, articulating my feelings without expectation of response. The letter evolved through several versions as my emotions progressed from raw hurt to more measured perspective. Consider what you hope to achieve with this communication, Dr. Martinez advised. Is it to change their minds? Express your pain? Set boundaries? All of these are valid, but knowing your purpose will shape your approach. As weeks passed, my work performance gradually improved. I returned from probation with renewed focus, compartmentalizing the family situation during office hours through techniques Dr. Martinez had taught me. The distraction of challenging projects became therapeutic in itself. My small but significant breakthrough came 6 weeks after the original text message. I realized one evening that I hadn't checked my family's social media accounts in 3 days, the longest I had gone without this digital self-flagellation since the estrangement began. That night, I told Dr. Martinez about this minor victory. It's not minor at all, she countered. It's the beginning of reclaiming your attention and energy from a situation you cannot control. That's significant progress. For the first time since receiving that devastating message, I began to envision a future where my family's absence, while painful, wasn't the defining feature of my existence. After 8 weeks of therapy, support groups, and gradual healing, I made a decision. I would make one final attempt at communication, not from a place of desperate need, but from a position of clarity and relative strength. With Dr. Martinez's guidance, I drafted an email that was factual rather than emotional. I attached medical records showing normal results from my recent physical. I included a letter from my boss confirming my professional conduct. I added a statement from my therapist, with my permission, explaining the psychological impact of their approach and offering to facilitate a mediated conversation. The email concluded, I am not suffering from addiction. I never have been. I remain open to discussing any concerns you have about our relationship or my well-being, but I can only do so in a context of direct, honest communication. I'm willing to participate in a family session with my therapist to address any issues constructively. I hit send without the anxious anticipation that had accompanied previous attempts at contact. This time, I genuinely accepted that their response, or lack thereof, would not determine my path forward. 3 days later, my mother replied with a single paragraph. Jessica, we're glad you're seeking help, but we think it would be better if you worked with a specialist in addiction recovery. We don't feel a family session would be productive until you've acknowledged the core issue. We love you and we'll be here when you're ready to accept help. The response, with its calm certainty about a completely fabricated problem, would have devastated me weeks earlier. Now, it simply confirmed what therapy had helped me understand. My family was committed to their narrative regardless of evidence to the contrary. I shared the email with Dr. Martinez during our next session. How are you feeling about this response? She asked. Strangely calm, I replied. It's almost a relief to have confirmation that this isn't something I can fix with the right words or evidence. We discussed my options: accept the estrangement indefinitely, continue attempts at written communication, or make one final in-person effort for closure, if not reconciliation. Whatever you choose, it needs to be for your healing, not with the expectation of changing their perspective, she cautioned. The decision crystallized gradually. I needed to look my family in the eyes one last time, not to beg for inclusion, but to stand in my truth and offer them a clear choice about our future relationship. I asked Rachel to accompany me to Connecticut, a request she accepted without hesitation. Whatever happens, you won't face it alone, she promised. The drive felt different this time. The desperate urgency had been replaced by a calm determination that surprised me. We checked into a hotel rather than making assumptions about where I would stay, another small act of accepting reality rather than fighting it. The next morning, I stood on my parents' doorstep for the second time in 2 months, Rachel waiting supportively in the car as requested. This time, when I rang the bell, I didn't call out or plead. I simply waited. After what seemed like an eternity, the door opened. My father stood there, looking older than I remembered, his expression guarded. Jessica. Not Jess or sweetheart or any of the terms of endearment he had used my entire life. Just my formal name, stated as if addressing a stranger. May I come in? I'd like to talk. He hesitated, then stepped aside wordlessly. In the living room, my mother sat rigidly on the couch. Adam occupied my father's usual armchair. Natalie was noticeably absent. Natalie couldn't make it. I asked, taking a seat in the remaining chair. She's with the kids, Adam replied flatly. No one offered refreshments or asked how I was. The normal rituals of family interaction conspicuously missing. The atmosphere was more reminiscent of a business negotiation than a family gathering. I had rehearsed what to say, but faced with their closed expressions, I temporarily forgot my carefully prepared words. Instead, I simply placed a folder on the coffee table. This contains my complete medical records, including drug screenings. It also has statements from my boss, colleagues, and my therapist. I'm not an addict. I never have been. Whatever behaviors you've misinterpreted were related to work stress, gym routines, and normal life changes, not substance abuse. My mother glanced at the folder without touching it. Denial is a powerful thing, Jessica. The practiced phrase sounded like something from a pamphlet or support group. My father nodded in agreement, while Adam studied the carpet intently. I took a deep breath, centering myself as Dr. Martinez had taught me. I understand you believe you're acting out of concern, but you've made a serious accusation without ever directly discussing it with me. You've cut me off completely based on a theory that has no basis in reality. We tried to talk to you about it for months, Adam interjected, looking up with surprising anger. You always had excuses or changed the subject. When? Give me one example of when anyone directly asked me about substance abuse. The silence that followed was telling. Finally, my father spoke. We shouldn't have had to spell it out. The signs were obvious to anyone paying attention. Signs that could be explained by dozens of other factors, I countered. Did it ever occur to you to ask if I was working overtime on a major account? Or dealing with the stress of a possible promotion? Or simply growing into a different version of myself than the one you remember? My mother's eyes filled with tears. We just want our Jessica back. The comment struck a nerve. Mom, this is me. The real me. I've grown and changed, yes. My life looks different than what you might have wanted for me. But the daughter you raised, hardworking, honest, caring, that's still who I am. Adam scoffed. This isn't about you changing careers or living in the city. This is about behavior that's destroying you. Something in his tone triggered a realization. This has happened before in the family, hasn't it? This isn't really about me at all. The subtle exchange of glances between my parents confirmed my suspicion. Uncle James, I said softly, naming my father's brother who had been effectively erased from family narratives years ago. This is about what happened with him. My father's posture stiffened. That's completely different. Is it? Or am I just the newest person to be diagnosed and discarded without due process? The tension in the room thickened as decades of unspoken family history suddenly became relevant. Uncle James, the family black sheep, had allegedly struggled with alcohol before being completely cut off 15 years ago. He had died alone 2 years later, a cautionary tale never fully explained to us as children. We're trying to prevent the same mistake, my mother said quietly. With James, everyone ignored the problem until it was too late. The irony was painful. So instead, you're implementing a preemptive strike based on a misdiagnosis? Mom, Dad, I am not Uncle James. My occasional glass of wine with dinner is not his alcoholism. My busy work schedule is not a cover for addiction. For nearly an hour, we circled the same arguments. They presented evidence I easily explained. I offered counter-evidence they summarily dismissed. The frustrating exchange clarified something important. This wasn't a misunderstanding that could be resolved with facts. This was a fundamental difference in how we perceived reality. Finally, I made one last attempt. I'm willing to attend family therapy with a neutral professional to work through this. Not an intervention, actual therapy where everyone's perspective is heard. That's my offer. My father shook his head. We've made our position clear. When you're ready to get the help you need, we'll be here. I stood then, a strange calm settling over me. Then I need to be clear too. I won't continue to subject myself to accusations based on misinterpretations and family ghosts. I love you all, but I won't accept being cast as someone I'm not. I walked to the door, then turned back one last time. If you change your minds about family therapy, my offer stands. Otherwise, I'll respect the distance you requested. As Rachel and I drove away, the tears I expected didn't come. Instead, I felt an unexpected lightness. Not happiness, certainly, but the clarifying relief of finally understanding that the solution to this problem wasn't in my hands. For the first time since receiving that text message, I felt the burden of responsibility for fixing an unfixable situation lift from my shoulders. 3 months have passed since I received the text that shattered my world. 3 months since my family decided I was someone I'm not and excommunicated me based on that fiction. The pain hasn't disappeared, but it's transformed into something I can carry without being crushed by its weight. My life today looks different than I could have imagined. My corner office at Meridian still contains the awards and credentials that once defined me, but they no longer represent the sum total of my identity. The perfectionism that drove me to exhaustion has softened into a healthier ambition. I still deliver excellent work, but I no longer equate my worth with my productivity. Michael called me into his office last week, not for another probation discussion, but to offer me a promotion to Senior Director of Client Strategy. Your work these past 6 weeks has shown remarkable insight and balance, he said. Whatever personal challenges you've been navigating, they seem to have given you a perspective that's reflecting positively in your client relationships. The irony wasn't lost on me. Family tragedy had somehow made me better at my job by forcing me to develop emotional intelligence I had previously neglected. My social circle has expanded in unexpected ways. Rachel remains my closest friend, but I've built meaningful connections through the estrangement support group as well. Sophia and I meet weekly for coffee before group sessions. David has introduced me to rock climbing, an activity I would have dismissed as a frivolous use of time in my former life, but now provides both physical challenge and mental respite. I've also discovered the concept of chosen family. My building superintendent Fernando and his wife Elena have adopted me for Sunday dinners, insisting no one should eat alone on family day. Their boisterous household, filled with grown children and grandchildren who come and go freely, offers a window into what family can be at its best, supportive without being suffocating, loving without being conditional. Emily has maintained contact despite family pressure, calling regularly and occasionally visiting Boston. She reports that my name has become taboo in family gatherings, mentioned only in hushed tones like someone deceased. My Aunt Patricia also broke ranks last month, sending a brief email expressing concern and suggesting we meet next time she visits Boston. These small rebellions against the family narrative give me hope that the estrangement might not be permanent for everyone in my extended circle. Dr. Martinez continues to help me process the complicated grief of living estrangement. You're mourning people who are still alive, she explained in a recent session. That creates a unique type of pain. The ambiguity makes it difficult to find closure. I've learned that acceptance doesn't mean approval. I can accept my family's decision without agreeing with it. I can understand the dysfunctional dynamics that led to this situation without excusing the hurt they've caused. I can leave the door open to reconciliation without waiting by it indefinitely. Last month, my mother sent a birthday card, just my name and hers on the pre-printed text, no personal note added. The gesture was simultaneously thoughtful and painful in its restraint. I chose to interpret it as a tiny crack in the wall of silence rather than another form of rejection. Progress in estranged relationships isn't measured in grand reconciliations, but in these small, ambiguous moments. The most unexpected benefit of this painful experience has been self-discovery. Without family roles and expectations constraining my self-perception, I've found freedom to explore who I actually am versus who I was raised to be. I've discovered I enjoy painting, something I never would have made time for in my previously scheduled-to-the-minute life. I've developed political opinions that don't neatly align with either my family's conservative views or my urban peers' progressive ones. I've dated people my family would consider unsuitable, but who challenge and enrich me in ways I'd never experienced. As for the future, I've stopped trying to predict or control it. I recently placed the family photos that once dominated my apartment in a memory box, not discarded but no longer central to my daily environment. New images have taken their place. Friends at a beach weekend, my first successful rock climbing expedition, the certificate from my painting class. I still hope for eventual reconciliation, but I no longer base my happiness on that outcome. I've learned that moving forward doesn't mean leaving the door permanently closed. Family systems can evolve, people can grow, perspectives can shift. If that happens, I'll navigate that bridge when I come to it, with healthier boundaries and a stronger sense of self. For now, I'm focused on building a life that feels authentic and fulfilling, with or without my family's participation. The text message that once seemed like an ending has become, in retrospect, a painful but necessary beginning. My family texted that they needed distance from me. They asked me to stop contacting them completely. My journey since then has taught me that sometimes the people we expect to understand us most deeply can become strangers operating from their own limited perspectives. But it has also shown me that when the worst happens, when your deepest fears of abandonment come true, you can survive it. Not just survive, but eventually thrive in ways you never imagined possible. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever been misunderstood by the people closest to you? How did you handle family conflict or estrangement? Your stories might help someone else feeling alone in their struggle. If this resonated with you, please consider subscribing and sharing with others who might need to hear that healing is possible even after profound family rupture. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your worth isn't determined by other people's perceptions, even when those people share your DNA.